When we are constantly nice to others, particularly in relationships with men, we often end up doing so at our own expense. It's a subtle trap, one that many of us fall into without realizing the cost. There's this idea that being nice, always giving, and putting the needs of others ahead of our own will somehow earn us love, respect, or even validation. But the reality is far different. The more we give, the more we deplete ourselves, often leaving us resentful, unnoticed and noticed and underappreciated. Niceness in its purest form isn't a problem. Kindness is essential for connection. It's about showing empathy, compassion, and care for others, but when we take niceness too far, when it becomes a reflexive action rather than a thoughtful choice, that's when things start to go awry. The danger lies in how niceness often morphs into a form of self-sacrifice, a sacrifice that goes unnoticed, unreciprocated, and ultimately makes us feel small, unimportant, and overlooked. Think about it for a moment. When you're always the one to reach out first, when you're constantly offering to help or please, what happens? The person you're trying to impress or make happy might not even notice. First, they might begin to expect it. In fact, they might start to take it for granted, assuming that you will always be there, always doing what they want, without ever considering your own needs or desires. At first it might seem like a noble pursuit, but eventually it begins to feel like a one-sided effort. This dynamic erodes the very thing you're hoping to build respect. Respect is earned through balance. It's not something you can force through endless acts of niceness. When you give too much, when you bend over backward to accommodate someone else's needs without regard for your own, you start to lose your sense of self. And here's the thing: people can sense this. They can sense when you're giving too much, and without meaning to, they may begin to pull away, or worse, take advantage of it. The more you try to please, the less they value you. It's a paradox, one that only reveals itself when you step back and take a hard look at your actions. But niceness doesn't just affect how others perceive you, it affects how you perceive yourself. When you're always in the position of giving, your own needs and desires fade into the background. You'll begin to lose sight of what you truly want in a relationship, what you value, and what makes you feel seen and appreciated. Over time, this neglect of self leads to frustration, bitterness, and even a sense of invisibility. You might wonder, why is it that I'm doing everything for this person, but they never seem to see it? Why do I feel so drained? So unnoticed, the answer often lies in the fact that the effort you're putting in is not being reciprocated in a meaningful way. People, by nature, mirror the energy they receive. When you constantly give with no expectation of return, you're not inviting balance, you're setting up a dynamic where the other person feels no need to give back. This is where it becomes crucial to take a step back and reflect on why you're giving so much in the first place. Is it because you're hoping to earn approval or affection? Are you afraid of rejection, of being seen as difficult or demanding? There's a fine line between being generous with your time, energy, and affection, and using those things as a bargaining chip for validation. And the truth is, when you rely on niceness as a way to get something in return, you set yourself up for disappointment. Because no one can ever fill the emptiness that comes from sacrificing your own needs for the sake of someone else's. Now, here's the important part. This doesn't mean you should stop being kind. It doesn't mean you should close yourself off to the world or become cold and distant. It simply means that you need to recognize your value and set boundaries. You need to understand that your worth isn't tied to how much you give or how much you please others. You don't have to constantly chase after approval or attention. In fact, the more you pull back and focus on your own needs, the more likely you are to attract the kind of respect and love that's genuinely fulfilling. When you stop giving endlessly, when you stop trying to fix things or make others happy at the cost of your own well-being, you will find that the relationships that truly matter begin to flourish. The key here is to understand the difference between being nice and being necessary. When you constantly give, you may think you're being helpful, but you're not giving people the space to value you. When you set boundaries and let people come to you, you show them that you are not here to be used, but to engage in a relationship that's built on mutual respect. You are not a one-way street, constantly catering to the needs of others. Instead, you are someone who values your own time, energy, and emotions just as much as anyone else's. So stop chasing, stop trying to prove your worth through endless acts of niceness. When you give from a place of true self-respect, not because you're seeking validation, you will attract the relationships and respect that are worth your time and energy. And in the end, that is the kind of love and connection that matters most. When you start to recognize the harm in always being the one who gives, the next step is to understand that your true power doesn't lie in what you do for others, but in your ability to stand firm in your own worth. You see, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that your value comes from your actions, from the things you do to make others happy or comfortable. But this is where you begin to lose yourself. True strength lies in knowing that you do not need to prove your worth. It's not in your gestures, your sacrifices, or your endless attempts to win approval. You are valuable simply by being who you are. When you stop trying to earn affection or validation through endless giving, you make room for something far more powerful to emerge: self-respect. Self-respect is not about ego or pride. It's not about thinking you're better than anyone else, nor is it about putting up walls that prevent anyone from coming close. It's about recognizing that you are enough just as you are, and that you do not need to chase, beg, or prove yourself in order to be worthy of love, affection, or respect. Think about it for a moment. If we're constantly giving our time, our energy, our emotions, what happens? We end up depleted, empty, and resentful. And the irony is that this kind of giving often has the opposite effect of what we hope for. We give and give, yet we often feel like we're not receiving anything in return. It might seem strange at first, but the more we try to prove our worth by overextending ourselves, the less we are truly seen. Instead of gaining respect, we begin to lose it not from others, but from ourselves. Because here's the crux of the matter: when we act from a place of desperation, from the need to be seen, we're not actually valuing ourselves. We're not acting out of abundance. We're giving from a place of lack. And that is the most draining place to give from. You end up giving out of fear of being rejected, fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten. But when your actions are driven by fear, they never truly nourish you. They never replenish you. They only leave you feeling emptier. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you shift the focus. You stop chasing after others, trying to meet their needs or desires at the expense of your own. Instead, you begin to put your energy into valuing yourself, into recognizing that your time, your love, your kindness are gifts, not things to be given away for free or used as a way to make someone else feel better. This doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you stop giving from a place of need, from a place of feeling incomplete without someone's approval. You start giving from a place of abundance, of wholeness, and that is when you will attract the kind of people who will respect you not because you've done something for them, but because they see your value. When you focus on your own worth, you give people the space to recognize it too. You don't chase after them, trying to win them over with actions. You allow them to come to you. When someone sees that you value yourself, that you know your own worth, they begin to see that you are not someone to be used or taken for granted. They start to understand that you are not looking for external validation, but that you are whole and complete in yourself. This is what draws true respect from others, not the constant effort to be liked, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and not needing to prove it. This shift is subtle, but powerful. The moment you stop chasing, stop giving just to be seen, you begin to feel a freedom that you never thought possible. You no longer need to monitor every word or action, every gesture, to see if it's enough. You can just be. You can let go of the fear and simply exist in your own space, and that is magnetic. People are drawn to that energy because they sense it. When you stop chasing, you start to attract. And here's the beauty of this: the relationships that are built on this foundation are the ones that last. The ones that are based on mutual respect, where each person knows their own worth, are the relationships that can thrive. You don't have to chase someone who is already committed to seeing and valuing you. You don't have to beg for their attention. When someone truly values you, they will make the effort to show up, not because they're obligated, but because they want to. And that is the kind of connection that is worth pursuing. So, when you stop chasing, when you stop trying to earn affection or attention by giving endlessly, you open the door for true, authentic relationships to enter. Relationships where both parties understand the importance of self-respect and mutual care. And in these relationships you will find a love that is real, not a love that's built on proving your worth. You will find the peace that comes from knowing that you are enough just as you are. Remember, your value doesn't come from what you give to others. It comes from who you are, from your ability to stand in your own power and say, I am enough. And when you embrace that truth, everything else begins to fall into place. When you stop trying to prove your worth through endless giving, something remarkable happens. You stop operating from a place of need. That constant craving for validation, the desire to be seen, to be chosen, these things begin to fade. And when they do, you step into a new understanding of yourself. You begin to realize that your value isn't dependent on whether others recognize it or not. In fact, it never was. It was always there, deep within you, waiting for you to recognize it. The trap many of us fall into is the idea that we need to earn love, earn respect, earn attention. We convince ourselves that if we do enough, if we sacrifice enough, people will see our worth and give us what we've been craving. But this is where we get it all wrong. The more we chase, the more we deplete ourselves. And the more we deplete ourselves, the less energy we have to stand tall in our own authenticity. When you stop giving just to be liked or to win affection, you give yourself permission to stop running. The chase ceases. You stop looking outside yourself for validation. You shift your attention inward. And that's where the real transformation begins. You realize that you've been the one putting in all the effort, and in doing so, you've placed your happiness and sense of worth in someone else's hands. But the truth is, no one else has the power to determine your value. Only you can. Now, this doesn't mean that you close yourself off from others or become cold. No, it means you stop giving out of desperation and start giving out of abundance. When you recognize that you are enough, just as you are, you begin to give from a place of love, not need. You give because you want to, not because you feel compelled to. This shift in energy is subtle, but it's powerful. You begin to see that your actions aren't meant to secure someone else's affection. They are a reflection of your own self-love, your own understanding of your worth. And when you give from that place, something remarkable happens. The energy you put out starts to come back to you. People begin to respond differently. Not because you're trying to manipulate them with your actions, but because they can sense that you are no longer chasing after them. You're no longer trying to fit into a mold that others have made for you. You're standing in your own power. And here's the most freeing part: when you stop chasing, you stop attaching your sense of worth to how others respond to you. If someone chooses to walk away, you don't chase after them, begging them to stay. You simply recognize that they are not aligned with you, and that's okay. When you stop chasing, you free yourself from the fear of rejection, the fear of being left behind, because you realize that your worth was never tied to someone else's approval. It was never tied to how much you gave or how much you did for others. Your worth has always been inherent in you. This is where your personal power lies. When you stop chasing, you stop diminishing your own value in an effort to please others. You start standing firm in your truth, knowing that you are enough, and that anyone who cannot see that is simply not meant to walk beside you. There is a peace in this understanding. You no longer feel the need to jump through hoops to prove that you're worthy of someone's attention. You're already worthy. You're already worthy, you're already complete. And when you truly understand this, you stop feeling the weight of constant pursuit. The energy you were once pouring into chasing others, into proving your worth, now becomes energy you can invest in yourself. You become more focused on your own growth, your own happiness, and your own journey. And as you begin to shift your energy inward, you attract people who are aligned with your energy, people who see and value you for who you truly are, not for what you do or how much you give. These are the relationships that are built on mutual respect, mutual admiration, and mutual understanding. They are not based on one person giving more than the other, but on two individuals standing beside each other, both knowing their own worth. When you stop chasing, you stop settling. You stop accepting relationship situations and behaviors that don't align with your true self. You begin to demand more from life, not from a place of entitlement, but from a place of deep respect for yourself. You don't settle for scraps when you know you are worthy of a full feast. And in doing so, you set a standard for how others treat you. You teach people how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. When you value yourself, others will follow suit. So remember, the next time you feel that urge to chase, to prove yourself, to seek validation outside of yourself, take a moment to pause. Realize that the true power lies not in how much you give, but in how much you value yourself. When you stop chasing, you open the door to everything you've been seeking: authenticity, respect, and real connection. And that is worth so much more than any approval you could ever chase. The truth is, when we stop chasing after approval, we begin to make room for the things that truly matter, things that are not dependent on external validation. It's an ironic thing, really. We often spend our lives thinking that if we get the approval, the attention, the acknowledgement, we will somehow feel complete. But the opposite is actually true. When you stop seeking, when you stop trying so hard to prove your worth, you allow yourself to discover what truly satisfies you, and it comes from a place much deeper than the surface-level validation we often crave. You see, this constant chasing for someone else's approval or affection has a way of wearing you down. It drains your energy, it pulls you out of the present moment, and it leaves you feeling like you are always one step behind, always trying to earn the love and respect that should already be yours by virtue of simply being. So, when you stop chasing, you stop depleting yourself. The more you seek from others, the more you place your sense of worth in their hands. But when you shift that focus inward, when you realize that you are already whole, the need to chase starts to fade. This is where the real power comes from, not from trying to fit into someone else's world, but from realizing that your world is enough just as it is. Imagine that for a moment, what if, instead of constantly adjusting yourself to match what others expect, you simply stood in your own truth, accepting yourself as you are? What if, instead of chasing after someone who seems unreachable, you focused on standing in your own light and letting others meet you there if they are meant to? When you stop chasing, you start living life on your terms. You become more in tune with your own desires, your own needs, your own sense of self. You recognize that chasing is not only exhausting, but it's also counterproductive. The more you chase after someone or something, the more elusive it seems. It's a paradox, isn't it? The more effort you put in, the further away it appears. But when you stop the chase, you begin to notice the world around you in a way that's so much richer. You begin to see how much you've been giving away, how much energy you've been pouring into something or someone that wasn't deserving of that energy in the first place. And it's not just about the energy, it's about your time, your mental space, your peace. When you're chasing something, you're essentially saying, I am not enough as I am. I need something or someone else to complete me. But when you step away from that, when you give yourself permission to simply be, something shifts. You stop defining yourself based on the approval of others. You stop identifying yourself by whether someone reaches out first, whether they text or call. You begin to recognize that your peace, your happiness, your self-worth is not tied to someone else's behavior. You are the one who defines your value, not the actions of others. When you stop chasing, you become more present. You stop living for the future, constantly wondering when someone will reach out, when the next thing will happen. Instead, you start living in the moment, enjoying your own company, finding fulfillment in your own presence. And it's only in this place of self-sufficiency that you can truly attract the right people, the ones who will meet you where you are, not because you've chased after them, but because they recognize your value, your authenticity. They see you for who you truly are, and they are drawn to that energy. Here's the thing, when you stop chasing, you stop undervaluing yourself. Because let's be honest, when you are chasing someone who isn't meeting you halfway, what are you really saying? That you'll accept any kind of treatment, even if it's not aligned with your own worth? That you'll settle for scraps when you know you deserve a full feast? But when you stop chasing, you send a clear message to the universe, and to others I know my worth, and I'm not going to beg for it. I will not settle for anything less than what aligns with my true self. This doesn't mean you have to harden your heart or shut people out. It simply means you no longer put your happiness in the hands of someone else. You no longer rely on their actions to dictate your mood or sense of worth. You stand in your own power, grounded in the knowledge that you are already enough. And when you operate from this place of self-assurance, you find that the right people will come to you, not because you've chased them, but because you have stopped chasing at all. They are drawn to your energy, to your sense of self, to your peace. And that is the most magnetic thing of all. When you stop chasing, you make space for something far more beautiful, real connection. You allow relationships to unfold naturally without force. And the relationships that are meant to last will be the ones that come to you organically, effortlessly. The energy you've spent on chasing will now be available to invest in yourself, to nourish your own growth, your own journey. And when you are aligned with your own truth, you attract others who are also aligned with their truth. So stop chasing. It's time to step into your own power, to stop looking outside yourself for validation, and to recognize that you are already whole. When you do this, you will find that everything you've been seeking will come to you, not because you chased it, but because you became the person who no longer needs to. And that is when life truly begins to unfold in the most beautiful way. When you stop chasing, you open yourself up to the beautiful possibility of surrender. And I know surrender is a word that tends to make people uncomfortable. We often think of surrender as weakness, as giving up, as something that happens when we've run out of options. But surrender in this context is something entirely different. It's the surrender to the flow of life, the surrender to what is, and most importantly, the surrender to yourself. You see, chasing is the antithesis of surrender. When you chase, you are actively trying to control, to shape, to force things into being according to your will. You are telling the universe that you know best, that your way is the right way, that you must make things happen, that you must be in control. And yet, no matter how hard you chase, how much you exert your energy, you cannot control the outcome of any situation. Life doesn't work that way. When you stop chasing and surrender to what is, you begin to recognize that life has its own rhythm, its own timing. There's a flow to things, a natural unfolding that we cannot predict or manipulate. The harder we try to control it, the further away it gets. But when we step back and simply allow things to unfold, when we cease to chase after approval or validation, we allow the right opportunities, the right people, and the right moments to come to us. Not because we forced them, but because we trusted the process. Surrender, then, is not about giving up, it's about letting go of the need to control. It's about releasing the tension, the anxiety, the desperation that comes from believing that everything depends on our effort. Instead, it's a deep trust in the natural order of things, in the understanding that things will unfold as they should, as long as we stay true to who we are. When you stop chasing, you surrender to the fact that life has its own course, and that you are a part of that course, not something separate from it. This kind of surrender also brings with it a profound sense of peace. When you are no longer chasing something or someone, you are no longer at the mercy of external circumstances. You are no longer dependent on how others behave or how the world responds to your actions. You are instead rooted in your own being, in your own truth. And from this place, peace naturally arises. It's the peace that comes from knowing that you don't have to constantly push and strive. You don't have to prove yourself or earn someone else's approval. You are enough as you are right now. And this peace is contagious. When you stop chasing, you exude a calm confidence that is magnetic. People are drawn to it because, whether they realize it or not, everyone is seeking that same peace. People can sense when someone is at ease, when they are comfortable in their own skin, when they are not constantly seeking something outside of themselves to make them feel whole. When you stop chasing, you become that person who simply radiates authenticity and calm. It's not about effort or force, but about a deep-seated confidence in yourself and in the flow of life. Furthermore, surrender allows you to see things more clearly. When you're chasing, you're so focused on the end result that you miss everything happening in the present moment. You're so obsessed with getting somewhere, with achieving something, that you fail to appreciate where you are right now. But when you surrender, you free yourself from that obsessive thinking. You let go of the pressure to constantly move forward and instead become fully present in each moment. You start to see things as they truly are, not as you want them to be. And it's in this clarity that you begin to make wiser decisions, not from a place of desperation, but from a place of calm awareness. Surrender doesn't mean you stop acting. It doesn't mean you stop pursuing your goals, your passions, your dreams. It simply means you stop forcing things into being. You stop trying to make them happen on your timeline and allow them to unfold at their own pace. You stop chasing and instead focus on alignment, aligning your actions with your values, your heart, your truth. And when you align yourself in this way, the universe seems to conspire to support you. The right opportunities, the right people, the right experiences begin to show up in your life, not because you were chasing them, but because you were simply being true to who you are. It's in surrendering that you realize you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to chase after the approval of others or constantly seek out validation. You are already worthy, already whole. You just have to stop running after something that is always just out of reach. When you surrender, you stop measuring your worth by what others think of you or how much attention you can garner. You stop seeking fulfillment outside of yourself and instead turn inward, where you find a well of peace, strength, and contentment. So let go. Surrender the need to chase, the need to control, the need to make things happen on your own terms. Embrace the flow of life, trust the process, and allow yourself to be led where you need to go. Because when you stop chasing, when you surrender to the present moment and to your own authentic self, you become a magnet for the things that truly matter. And it is in that moment of surrender that life reveals its greatest gifts. Remember, you don't need to chase anything. The universe has a way of bringing what you need to you when you stop running after it. So stand still, be present, and trust that everything you need will come to you in its own time, perfectly and effortlessly. Now, when you stop chasing, you also realize that the act of letting go doesn't make you passive. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. It's about doing things, but doing them from a place of fullness, not desperation. There's a difference. When you're desperate, you're acting out of fear, out of the need to control outcomes. But when you do things from a place of fullness, you're in alignment with what feels right for you, not what feels right for someone else. You stop acting out of fear of losing something or someone, and instead you start acting out of joy, out of a desire to create, to give, to express yourself freely. The truth is, we've been conditioned to think that our value is tied to our ability to chase, to perform, to seek out validation from others. Society teaches us that we must chase after success, approval, love, and recognition. It tells us that we have to prove our worthiness by constantly striving for something more. But when we keep chasing, we're always running, always seeking. We never truly arrive anywhere. We don't find the peace and satisfaction we're looking for because we're always chasing the next thing. But when you stop chasing, you take the time to pause, to reflect, and to recognize that you are not defined by your actions or by external validation. You are whole already, and your value comes from within. And here's the irony when you stop chasing. When you stop trying to prove something, that's when you begin to attract the things you've been desperately seeking all along. Think about it for a moment. When we chase, we send out this energy of neediness. We're broadcasting to the world that we don't have enough, that we need something outside of ourselves to feel complete. But when we stop chasing, we send out a different energy entirely. We send out an energy of self-assurance, of peace, of knowing that we are already complete. And this is magnetic. People can feel it. Opportunities can feel it. The universe responds to this kind of energy in a way it never does when we are desperate. When you stop chasing, you also stop putting yourself in a position of imbalance. We often chase because we feel like we need someone or something to complete us. We feel incomplete, unworthy, as though we're lacking something, and so we go after it. We go after people, approval, possessions, success, all in the hope that they will make us feel whole. But here's the catch: no one and nothing can complete you except you. When you're constantly chasing something, you're telling yourself that you're not enough as you are. And that, my friend, is the most dangerous thought you can entertain. But when you stop chasing, you stop subscribing to this idea that you are broken, that you are missing something. You recognize that you are complete in your essence. You are whole right here, right now. And it's from that place of wholeness, from that place of knowing your inherent worth, that the magic happens. You no longer need to chase after anything. You attract it. This doesn't mean you stop engaging in the world or stop pursuing your goals and dreams. No, not at all. But you stop doing it from a place of fear or inadequacy. You start acting from a place of abundance, from a place of trust that the right things will come to you at the right time. You start to move in alignment with who you truly are, not in pursuit of something you think you need to validate you. And what happens when you stop chasing? The people who are meant for you will show up. The right opportunities will manifest. The right experiences will unfold in your life effortlessly, with ease. Because you've stopped trying to force things into being. You've stopped living from a place of lack and moved into a place of abundance. And this abundance is what the world responds to. This is what creates real and lasting connection, success, and fulfillment. So stop chasing and start being. Stop seeking approval and start giving yourself the approval you've been searching for all along. When you do, everything else falls into place. The people who genuinely value you will be drawn to you. The opportunities that are aligned with your true purpose will reveal themselves. And life will flow with you instead of against you. And here's the final truth: when you stop chasing, you reclaim your power. You no longer give it away to things outside of yourself. You stop letting circumstances dictate how you feel about yourself. You stand in your own power, rooted in who you are, not in what others think of you or what you can achieve. You don't need to chase anything. You are the source of everything you seek. So stand tall in your own presence, in your own worth, and trust that everything you desire will come to you when you stop running after it. It's the paradox of life: the more you stop chasing, the more you will receive. Let go of the chase. Stand in your power and watch how life begins to unfold around you.